Then we'll move then to the next two items. We're going to take them up together. 206240, that the administration establish an independent task force to look into hiring more minorities in various departments, most especially the fire and police departments. As well as item 206939, that the administration create an equity task force to look at the city's hiring practices for all city positions in boards, commissions. These two orders were brought forward in 2018 by Councilor Mabah. There was a discussion in committee in 2019 on the two of them. And then Director Annie Connors suggested that she would have conversation offline with the good councilor, to get to the meat of it and to work it out with Councilor Mabah. So Councilor Mabah was aware that his two items of importance would be on the agenda this evening, and I asked him to be prepared to bring the committee up to date on where this stands. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Madam Chair. I really appreciate you putting this item on the agenda. It's been, I think, you and I probably know how much the administration has been working so hard, so I spoke briefly with Director Collins. So I think she will be, presenting something before us, or maybe something is still in the works, but like I mentioned to you, in an email, this is the framework of where I want to operate. And I requested, hiring data for the last 2 to 5 years, and that the data should be broken down by demographic based on race for all hiring, a breakdown of hiring by full-time, part-time, seasonal based on race for each year, making sure that the breakdown of various management positions also based on race, because how many people of color are in different management levels based on our organizational chart. So given the total number per year, doesn't really allow us to get to that granular look at the data to see how well the city is doing. So I will, yield to, Director Collins, so that they can present all of that information. I also need them also based on the gender as well, so that I know that this is not just my issue, and I know that you also care about this, as well as even members of the council that don't sit in confirmation of appointment. So I really want to thank you for putting this forward so that we can define that framework in which we want to see the city move forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that update. Assistant Director Collins, can you elaborate on, do you have any questions of Councilor Mabah or the committee as you work to create this data for us?
Through the chair, no, we are in receipt of the request. It was very clear, so I do not have questions. Understandably, it was a large request, so we did we could to see if we could get something put forward immediately. I hope that we'll be able to put that forward for the next meeting and get that to you in advance so you can review that and have a chance to review that before we discuss.
Sure. And through your chair, Madam Chair, just so like Director Collins, make sure you send it to the city clerk or through the chair so that other members of the committee can, have access. Like I said, this is not just my issue. Like for the chair also to have that discretion to put it on, it shows the magnitude of how much we care about this.
So, Assistant Director, a quick question for you. When you say you hope to have this ready for our next meeting, do you mean the committee meeting of the 16th or the full council meeting of the 11th?
Through the chair, if it is preferred to put it forward to the full council, we could try to do that. Again, we would make every effort to do that for the 11th, and then to see if that would be taken up for the committee meeting, which I guess is on the March 16th, correct?
Yeah, yes,
okay.
Yes, I do. I have not set my agenda for the 16th yet. I'm going to do that tomorrow, but I will keep these two items open in committee and post them to the 16th agenda, and the information that you delivered to the committee, if it could come in on the 11th, if it's not ready on the 11th, but it's ready on the 12th, you can still send it to us as an email because that communication would become part of our official report of the 16th, which would then be shared with the rest of my colleagues. So I guess it gives you another day's leeway in case you don't have that information ready to submit for the 11th. But if you're comfortable with the 16th, then I will put these 2 items on the agenda for the 16th.
Through the chair
Okay.
at this time, yes, I am comfortable with that, and I will keep in touch about
Great.
the progress. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Collins.
You're welcome. Councilor Klingon, you wanted to weigh in?
Yeah, Madam Chair. Go ahead, I'll yield to Council
No,
President.
it's fine. I'll defer. I'll go after you. It's fine.
Madam Chair, I just
Wait a minute. Excuse me 1 minute. Councilor Strezzo, did you weigh in on the chat line?
I did. Darn it! I did the organizers again. It's fine. I'll let just Councilor Klingon and then I'll go. I did it again.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure I didn't miss you. Thank you. Councilor Klingon, then Councilor Strezzo.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just I know these were put in 2018, and I was just curious if the good counselor at large, like, you know, felt as though this needed any editing to the last part, seeing as though, you know, I think we've since learned that fire and police are hired through civil service, so it's through, you know, a testing process that is fair and except, you know, when it can be, you know, manipulated. But you know what I'm saying is essentially that we've all been working. I think the main thing to that piece is getting the word out about the tests. I think that, and I also think just letting people know how accessible they are. I've said many times on many occasions that, you know, growing up in Somerville, and maybe this probably was even more the case back then, I'm not sure, but that you basically had to know somebody. I didn't quite realize that, you know, mainly because it always turned out to be where people's family members ended up on the different departments, but that oftentimes had to do with the fact that they knew the path. They basically knew the process. So therefore, they would, you know, while others like myself thought that the door was closed completely. So I continue to try to push the posting of the tests and encouraging people to take those tests. Although I don't know maybe if everyone's mentality has changed altogether since, you know, I mean, are we still? Is this the word? All right, never mind. You know, I'm just it's just a little frustrating because I was really proud to put on some of these candidates tonight onto the police force, and you know, I just, but that piece about the fire and police, I think at this point it's become clear that there's a process. As far as I totally agree, as far as all the other departments and various boards, that, you know, we should definitely look into how, you know, how we go about selecting candidates and how far and wide we do our searches and so on, just to make sure that it's equitable and accessible to all. But I just wanted to speak on that particular piece because I know I've told Councilor Mba that I was going to try to catch up with him on that process and how we could work together to encourage more people of color to take the police and fire exam whenever possible. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Strezzo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Councilor Mabah. I'm very excited that this that we're continuing to talk about equity and hiring within, especially within the fire and police department. So I am confused as to why we have candidates. Can we kind of discuss this? Because I think we have some candidates that came forward in the past couple of meetings that from a plethora of backgrounds, etc. So I'm open to the dialogue on this as to why we have that now and why we're still discussing this. Are we looking to close it or?
Councilor Mabah, you want to respond?
Madam Chair, I'm not sure, you know, like what Councilor Strezzo is asking. I thought maybe she can carry her question and ask, maybe in the interest of time, at the next committee meeting where we are all having this conversation. Like, I don't understand the premise of her question.
Through you to Madam Chair, to Councilor Mabat, this order is calling for a more diverse candidates, specifically for the police and fire department. So the past several meetings of this, we've had a plethora of backgrounds from different degrees and plenty of candidates of color, several women. So I just want some elaboration on this, where we are now, and just want to hear from you on this. We have to have this dialogue.
Madam Chair, can I respond again?
Yep, she's asking you, yes.
Councilor Strezo for asking that question. Again, when you listen to my comment, I talked about it's about the process. We are trying to establish a framework. If we are not there, if we don't have a process together, nothing really makes sense. So we are trying to establish a process. Right now, like I mentioned, I sit on the interview panel for the Racial and Social Justice Director. Last weekend, we sat for 6 hours interviewing 2 candidates. So I know, like, this is part of the process. If the process isn't, like, structured right, it's almost like we are playing cat house. But I just, want to follow so this is also part of that, establishing that framework that we can all enjoy.
So if I hear correctly, you're saying the process moving forward, because, okay, I guess I was misunderstanding what this order is saying, and also because we've had candidates that are of color and are of diverse backgrounds, which I believe this order is addressing. So you're discussing the process before that in this order?
Councilor Mabat, you want to answer that?
I don't understand, like, the question.
Let me interject. I think what I'm hearing my colleague Councilor Strezo say is we've been interviewing in the last couple of rounds of interviews diverse candidates, some for fire, some for police, which one of your orders is specific to. And the diverse candidates who came before us for those departments, you went a no on for the police department. And I think she's struggling with, if you're looking for more diversity and diversity is presented before you, but you're still not approving, she's not quite understanding that why you voted no on diverse candidates.
So, Madam Chair, so if you listen carefully, every time before I make a vote, I make a statement. When we had these conversations in the past several weeks, I kind of like said my approach to public safety policy was based on a few simple priorities. And I explained, I said, one was to create a diverse police force in addition to everything else we are doing, reduce and ultimately eliminate harm caused by law enforcement, and improve public safety in all communities. And if you listen carefully, and I said, sometimes these priorities conflict, and we'll have to prioritize one over another. So I don't want to go back in time, but I'm trying to say, one, it's about a process. We are trying to establish a process. So if the process isn't established, all this, so if I see a candidate of color, I just have to vote, even if the process is not, right, even if the process is not in place. I don't want to operate like that. I want to operate within a framework that makes me feel comfortable. Do I make sense? Or we can go on and on, but we can have this conversation. I have, every time before I vote, I make a statement. And the last candidate, I said, my voting doesn't undermine affirmative action. My voting doesn't, preclude the fact that I don't believe in economic mobility. So there's something else. Like I said, I sit in an interview process, for Racial and Social Justice Director process. So why am I rushing the process forward?
Oh goodness, I certainly don't want to be yelled at. My gosh, I'm just being
passionate. If this
I didn't mean to be yelled at. I didn't mean any harm. I wasn't trying to. through you, Madam Chair, I wasn't trying to I certainly wasn't trying to, I don't want to be yelled at. I really just wanted to understand why it's two separate things. And I certainly am trying to listen closely to what you're saying.
Madam
And
Chair,
I sure have been listening closely because what you say matters.
okay.
And always has been. I certainly don't want to be yelled at. But what I do want to understand is why, and I think, and I want to definitely elaborate, that I think it is definitely the full council's support of reimagining the police, Councilor Mabah. And I do believe that we are all looking for ways to reimagine the police in different strategies of that. So that's what I'm trying to understand. I certainly didn't want to be yelled at. We're working together on this, I thought. So I'm trying to understand. That's all.
Madam Chair, can
I think there's a lot of passion happening right now, and we're all
Madam
on,
Chair,
as Councilor Strezzo said.
May I respond, Madam Chair?
You can respond, and then I'm going to defer to Councilor Scott, who's been asking to weigh in. So, Councilor Mabah, and then going to Councilor Scott.
I knew he was going to step in, but Councilor, I don't hear. I'm not. My apologies if you think I'm yelling. It's just that things are sensitive to me. I'm very passionate about this stuff. So when you say,
my goodness,
I feel like I'm being gaslighted for my own. It's like you're questioning my motives.
No.
So and then I said, let me explain myself. I had to go back in time to kind of like, like look at my recollection. I like to be consistent about things that
I'm not entirely sure why this would be considered gaslighting.
Okay. I'm gonna intervene as chair and ask that I'm hearing passion on both ends, and I would really strongly encourage the two of you to have coffee before our next council committee meeting, so that we can look at the data that's presented before us and continue. But I think the two of you need to have a sidebar, and it has to be only two of you, otherwise there would be a conflict of the open meeting law. Councilor Scott, what did you want to weigh in on this point?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to provide some historical context because I know that not all members of the committee were members of the committee back in 2018 when these items were raised. These items came out of a very specific conversation with the director of personnel at the time and with our, I think it was our diversity, equity, inclusion manager and our recruiter. We had a recruiter position at the time. Relevant to the fire and police departments, while we do have a service process, Councilor Mbah's ask was rooted in a question of how we could proactively ensure that more BIPOC residents and more women were made aware of the tests and were given assistance by the city to help them through the process, because it can be a very opaque process, as Councilor Klingon pointed out. So the ask was, at the time, as I recall, what kind of structure, whether it's a task force or a very specific set of goals from an employee or recruiter, we could put in place to ensure that future classes that come through civil service greater reflected the diversity of the city. We have certainly had some very diverse candidates recently come through. Unfortunately, that's a happy accident, because the structure that Councilor Mbah keeps talking about needing isn't something that's been put in place. So I really appreciate that we're still coming back to this. And I appreciate his comments about wanting a structure that will endure, to ensure that it's not just that we get lucky on the set of people who took the test, but that we can create affirmative action, if you will, to ensure that we have a richer pipeline of candidates and talent from these communities that we want to see have greater representation, both in our public safety services and then also in a second order to other boards and commissions in the city. So it's not about the candidates we saw 2 years ago or 3 years ago or even this year. It's about what we're doing structurally to change our recruiting practices, including when it comes to civil service, just providing people with the information and feeding them, helping them manage that process. I hope that's helpful to provide some of that historical context. But I appreciate Councilor Bob bringing it back up again, and you for putting it on the agenda.
So colleagues, we're going to continue discussion on the 16th, where we should have some data from Assistant Director Ellen Schneider-Collins. So Ellen, if we could please get that, the latest Friday or Saturday before the Tuesday meeting, because it's probably going to be substantial data and we'll need time to review it. If we can't get it for the 11th meeting, please give it to us on the 12th. Do you have any, you said you're pretty clear on that of the request. So curiously, Assistant Director, are we close? No disrespect to you in this question at all. There's so much going on in the city. Are we close to hiring a director of HR?
Through the
Who
chair.
can answer that?
Well, sorry, to the chair. I'm happy to answer that question. Yes, we
Yes,
actually
thank you.
are. I'm sorry, can you hear me? Okay. We do have a director of HR who just began yesterday. So that is very new information. And so we'd be happy to, provide introductions as we begin to onboard her into the city.
That's good news. Congratulations to you. I've been worrying about yourself. I mean, you're wearing two hats, and where I'm throwing punching balls at you every now and then. I mean, we're needing so much information, and there's so many openings and the processes. So it disappointed me that we never got to see the contracted part-time consultant that was supposed to be helping your department. And it's always been yourself before.
I think we've lost the chair's audio again. Usually if we just give this a second and I talk, we can hear her momentarily. So I apologize for everybody.
We found somebody, so that will help you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
We lost you at you're sorry that we weren't able to meet the temporary part-time contracted person. So if
That's
you'd like,
okay. I'm gonna stop. I think she understands, but thank you. Councilor Klingon has also let me know that he's having technical difficulties too, and he's trying to get back in. So it seems to be a tech crazy night. Colleagues, is there any further discussion before the committee this evening? Hearing none, then Mr. Clerk, I believe we've already called the roll on all of the votes of the motions, correct?
Madam Chair?
That is correct.
Councilman Ba, yes.
No, I just want to
Okay,
say
thank you, Peter. Councilman Ba?
I just want to say thank you again for putting these two items on the agenda. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir. Okay, chair moves to adjourn on the call to adjourn. Any discussion?
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Clerk, could you call the roll on adjournment? Councilor Scott.
I just want to say it's always a pleasure to be your vice chair. And if there's anything I can do during technical difficulty times to help you, I'm always glad.
Thanks, appreciate it. Okay, on the motion to adjourn, Mr. Fusilies.
On the motion to adjourn, Councilor Mabah,
Yes, please.
Councilor Klingon,
Yes.
Councilor Strezin,
Yes.
Councilor Scott,
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
Madam Chair, all 5 members have voted to adjourn.
Thank you, sir. So this meeting is adjourned. We will see each other again on the 16th. I'll be setting the agenda hopefully tomorrow, so you'll be receiving a communication on that agenda so you can prepare as well, colleagues. Thank you to city staff for being here with us through the evening, appreciative of all of you, and thank you to the two wonderful clerks for your assistance. Good evening, everybody.